Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Much better.
Couple seats up here if anybody wants to sit down. Now's the time. So again, my name's Ron. I'm the interim airport director. I've been here for a few months. I've got a few more weeks to go. I would like to introduce Ian again. Where did he go? There he is. Ian's the new airport director. He just started last Thursday, so he's learning this process as you are. We've got our dirt group here. I've got Wayne Ryder up here, and Nathan Kovala in the back. So there it is right there. They are the aviation planning professionals that we brought out, and Wayne's going to give us about a 30-minute presentation on the master plan process and where we're headed. So I'll turn it over to Wayne.
Thank you, Ron. Can you hear me okay in the back? Great. Well, again, my name is Wayne Ryder. I'm the lead planner from Ardura on this project. I would like to just welcome you to tonight's meeting and thank you for being here. We appreciate your attendance. A couple of housekeeping items I do want to cover real quick. First, this meeting is being recorded, so keep that in mind. And the second is, if you haven't already silenced your phones, go ahead and do that. That would be greatly appreciated. The way this is going to work tonight, while I do this presentation, we have team members who are going to go through the comments that have been submitted in writing over the course of tonight's meeting. And then at the end of this presentation, we'll go through those questions first, and then we'll go to an open microphone, depending on how much time we have. My intent is to go through this slideshow without stopping for questions to keep things moving along, and then at the end, we will then go into the question and answer period. So this is what we're going to go over during this presentation. We're going to go over what a master plan is, just as a review. What is the purpose of this project? Why are we doing this? And we'll give you an update on where we are in the process. Then we'll review the results of the forecast and facility requirements, because that is what led us to what we are here for tonight, which is the alternative. That's the main topic of tonight's meeting. We'll break away from this slideshow, go over all of the alternatives, which you hopefully had a chance to look at. They're on the boards in the back. And then we'll come back to this slideshow, go over the next steps in the process, and then we'll have the question and answer period. Can you still hear me okay in the back? Okay, great. What is a master plan? Why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this project? The short answer is it is a 20-year plan to safely and efficiently meet aviation demand at the airport. And that aviation demand is spelled out in the forecast. That's why we go with it. We may come back to this statement because it's important to us. It's a 20-year plan to meet the aviation demand. We began this project in July of 2021. We had the first public meeting in August of 2021. That was the kickoff meeting. We had a second public meeting in October of 2022 to go over the forecast and the facility requirements. So that means that this is meeting number 3. Normally, master plans take 2 years. We're 2.5 years into this project and counting. And the main reason is because when we started, the effects of COVID were still impacting the industry, and there was a lot of uncertainty. So we needed things to settle down in order to develop a good baseline for which to do the forecast projections. The forecast. What is a forecast? This is as a review. Forecast is a projection of aviation activity expected to occur at the airport over the next 20 years. We broke this forecast down into 3 parts. The commercial forecast, which is mainly about the airlines and passengers, then air cargo, and then general aviation. So here's the results of the commercial forecast. Enplanements, which is a person getting onto an airliner, is projected to grow at almost 2% annually. Airline operations, that means takeoffs and landings by the airliners, is projected to grow at 1% annually. What we call the critical aircraft, which is a picture you see on the screen there, it's an Airbus A319 or A320. And the importance of this is the representative aircraft for which the airport will be designed around, at least for the areas where the airliners are operating. Moving on to air cargo. Cargo movement, that's measured in terms of pounds of cargo, forecast to grow at almost 4% annually. This is a very high growth rate, and the highest growth rate of all of the forecast items in this particular forecast at this airport. Very important part that we need to plan around. Takeoffs by cargo planes, forecast to grow 2.3% annually, and the critical aircraft being the plane you see on the screen, that's the ATR 72. For general aviation, or GA as we like to call it, takeoffs and landings are forecast to grow at just under 2% annually. I said 0.8%, how about that? What it says on the screen. Military operations, takeoffs and landings, that is just over 2% annually. And then the base aircraft are forecast to grow at 1.3% annually. Why are we interested in that? Because the base aircraft, which is an operational aircraft parked at the airport the majority of the year, this will help us determine hangar requirements. And then the critical aircraft is the airplane you see on the screen. It's a Challenger 300, which is a representative aircraft of medium and heavy business jet aircraft. These are all the numbers. We're not going to go through every single number on the screen, but this is the result of the forecast. Some items that I'd like to highlight. In 2041, which is the planning horizon of this master plan, enplanements are expected to be over 326,000 enplanements. Just as a reference point, 2023, that's last year, they had about 275,000 enplanements. Cargo is forecast in 2041 to be about 13.5 million pounds. Just for reference, it was 6.3 million pounds in 2021. A lot of growth expected in cargo. And then finally, total takeoffs and landings from all aircraft at the airport, 40,119 in 2041. Moving on to the facility requirements. What are the facility requirements? You can think of these as being your needs. These are the items we're trying to address with the alternatives. We broke down the facility requirements into two areas: the airfield, which is the part of the airport where the airplanes are operating, and the land side, which is the part of the airport where the planes are not operating. And it's mainly related to passengers at this airport. For the airfield, airport design standards were the primary criteria for setting these facility requirements. And airport design standards are directly related to safety. So you can think of your airfield requirements as being safety requirements. So just to run through some of them, this is not all of them. The wind cone, otherwise known as a windsock to most people, on the south end of the runway, west runway, is too close to the runway, it needs to be moved farther away. The edges of the runways and the ends of the runways need to be expanded. That's not to say that the runways themselves need to be widened or lengthened. Their length is okay, but the sides and the ends need to be expanded. With the taxiways, there are some areas where the taxiways do not meet the design standard width of a taxiway, so they should be expanded there, as well as the shoulders off the sides of the taxiways. It just so happens on the screen here, we're looking at the east runway. There's a taxiway that crosses the runway just about the middle. This is an area that represents a high risk of collision, and it should be eliminated. The current de-icing pad is located right now on the terminal apron where the gate area is, and as it stands today, an airplane using the de-icing pad blocks the path for airplanes trying to go into the gates, and airplanes at the gate there block the path of airplanes that can use the de-icing pad. So we're proposing to move the de-icing pad out of the gate area of the terminal apron. And then what you see there, VORDME is a navigational aid on the airport in the infield. On this picture, it looks like a hat. Right here. There's a clear circle around that navigational aid that should be clear of structures. Right now it contains hangars. So in order to ensure signal integrity for that nav aid, it should be relocated. But also relocating that nav aid will also open up more space for development on the side of the airport. There's enough pavement to accommodate your general aviation parking requirements. It can be met though through better and more efficient use of painted markings on the ground. And then this is the big one. There are 41 hangars needed by 2041. That's a lot of hangars to find a place for on the airport. Moving to the land side, we're mainly talking about the passenger processing area. The terminal needs to be expanded. And two gates need to be added for airliners. All of the parking lots, that's the passenger parking, employee parking, and rental car parking, all of those parking lots need to be expanded. The cargo apron, and I'm referring mainly to FedEx right now, the cargo apron where the airplanes operate needs to be expanded. It's too small and it's very constrained. And then the processing facility, that is the building itself, needs to be more than doubled. This is just FedEx alone. And then there's demand for a second operator, which hasn't even started at the airport. Expanding the SRE building. SRE stands for snow removal equipment. It's where the city keeps their equipment to keep the runways clear during the winter. That building needs to be expanded, and the maintenance yard also should be expanded around it. On the screen here, it's right here. The terminal access road, and this is referring to Skyline Drive inbound and the loop, it should be expanded as well. We created some recommendations as well as the requirements. These are not required, but implementing these would help improve level of service and efficiency at the airport. One of those, or two of them actually, the one you see on the screen there, is a relocation of the control tower and what we call the airport's fire station, the ARC station. Both of them serve their purpose, but the tower is located atop the terminal building, and its placement there impedes further expansion of the terminal building. So relocating that outside of the terminal building will allow further expansion there. And then the fire station, it also serves its purpose, but it also impedes expansion of cargo in particular. And relocating it to the west side of the airport, the main runway, would also improve response times to emergencies on that runway. We recommend adding approach lights to the runway 3 end. This would improve access to the airport from the south by air. Storm drainage capacity and structural integrity should be assessed. We know that, especially in the terminal area, the storm drain infrastructure dates back to the 1940s. So with development comes runoff, comes the need to accommodate that drainage. So it should be assessed. Make sure that it can structurally handle it and can handle the capacity. That also means that we should be incorporating drainage features into the development. The reconfiguration of the parking lot access points along Skyline, that's referring to getting people who want to park into the parking lots before the curbside. It also means removing traffic from the loop that doesn't necessarily need to be there, like rental cars and cargo and that sort of thing. So we're looking to get people out of the curbside as much as possible, except for people who actually need to be there, because that's where people are walking, they have their luggage, they have strollers. And then finally, we recommend adding electric vehicle charging stations to the parking lots. Alternatives. What are the alternatives? Those are the drawings that you see behind you, and that's how we intend to address the requirements we just talked about and the recommendations. Normally, this would be the creative part of the planning process. However, we do have constraints that we got to meet the airport design standards, the dimensional standards, and that pieces need to fit operationally together. The drawings that you've seen in the back and that we're about to look at have been in development for over a year. They went from concepts with input from airport staff, a technical advisory committee, city staff to arrive at where you are today. And now it is your opportunity to provide feedback to us. And with that, I'm going to switch over to the alternatives. These alternatives were broken down into 4 geographic areas of the airport terminal area, which is primarily for passenger processing. The east side, which is primarily for the light general aviation. the south quad, which is for medium and heavy general aviation, and then the west side, which is undeveloped. We'll start with the terminal area and work our way around the airport. This drawing here is what we're calling terminal phase 1. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but the main items to look at is that it assumes that the fire station, the ARC station, has been relocated. It's not there anymore. One of those possible locations is right here, at the south end of the commercial terminal. It also assumes that a parking garage has been placed inside the loop. We modeled a 3-level parking garage directly across from the terminal. And in that garage would go the public side of the rental car operation, what we call the ready return. This is where you would pick up and drop off your rental car. So that would go, we're envisioning going into the first level of this parking garage. It's covered, it's across from the terminal, and we get those rental cars off of an area that can be used for airplanes. The other side, the non-public side, right here, of the rental car operation gets moved right here into a field that's not being used right now. What that will do is that'll create much more space for apron for airliners, and it will also get the rental cars, the non-public side, out of the skyline loop, so that they're not having to drive through the curbside. We've also shown in their place a small and temporary transit station for shuttle buses to pick up and drop off passengers at the terminal without having to go to the curbside. We're also showing some additional parking and circulation for FedEx, a overflow parking lot, and then we're showing Economy Lot 2 right here has been transformed into an employee parking lot. And that would allow the existing employee parking lot right here to be used as a possible location for the control tower. Another possible location for the control tower is right here in the loop. And then for Skyline, the actual Skyline Drive, it has been widened and the curves smoothed out to allow a little more efficient flow of traffic. Oh, I forgot to mention here, here's the cell phone lot right here, so that people can wait outside of the terminal loop and curbside until they actually have to go there. And then we have the exit road extending straight through here, which means that people will not have to go back towards the terminal and make a very sharp curve to exit the airport. Finally, along the curbside, we're allowing enough space for 2 full separate lanes to go through. That way, people can pick up and drop off passengers and not be interrupted by others like Ubers and shuttle buses and taxis. This is terminal phase 1. Terminal phase 2 is built upon that. The big difference, though, is that FedEx has been relocated elsewhere on the airport. And what that does is it opens up more space for parking. It opens up more space for a terminal expansion to the east along the curbside. And then a permanent, larger transit station at the terminal for full-size buses, deliveries, that sort of thing, so that they don't have to go through the curbside and they can go directly to the terminal. Parking lots have been reconfigured a little bit, but more or less it's the same as what we saw in phase 1. This one here, there's a building right here, a student camp building. In this drawing, we've shown it as having been removed and replaced with rental car parking. Now, rental car could either go in this parking lot or here. We just happen to show it right here. And then this being a permanent cell phone parking lot. We have a variation of this one, we're calling it 2A, the next drawing. The only difference is though that student building right here remains in place, and that could be used for airport administration, rentable space, but it also just means that the rental car would definitely stay in this area. Everything else here stays from phase 1. So that's the terminal area. We're going to go to the east side of the airport now. In this drawing, north is to the right. North is to the right. For reference, this is the east runway right here, run 1735. Right now, that area is dedicated to light general aviation. We show a continuation of that use by putting in additional hangars and taxi lanes for light general aviation. There's a retention basin right here that's used for drainage presently. We show it as a PD there, staying there because there's a need to accommodate drainage from the terminal area. This parcel right here is currently occupied by a community garden. We're showing an overflow parking lot for rental cars. As it is today, the overflow parking lots at the south end of the runway right here, not a great place to have them. They're in the runway protection zone, so we have them relocated over here. This is going to be a pretty key decision point of this master plan, and that is what to do with this runway. As it stands today, it's not eligible to receive FAA funding for maintenance, and that's due to crosswind and the capacity. Which means that today and ongoing, maintenance will have to come from local funds, that being the airport. So there's a decision that is going to have to be made, and that is, one, keep the runway. Keep it as a runway and maintain it locally with local funds, or close the runway and turn it into a taxiway, at which point it will become eligible for FAA funding. This particular drawing shows development that could occur with or without the runway open or closed. As a scenario, if the runway were to be closed and converted to a taxiway, there's quite a bit of space that could be made for hangars and tie-downs, for general aviation hangars and tie-downs. Some of these tie-downs would have, and hangars would have to occur after that navigational aid that I talked about. It would have to be relocated. But closing the runway, turning it into a taxiway, make it eligible for FAA funding, and create space for hangars and tie-downs. Another opportunity that it would present is right here, at the south end of what is now the runway. We're showing cargo, air cargo. There's space there for FedEx and a second operator. So if the runway were to be closed, turned into a taxiway, you could meet your cargo needs on the east side of the airport, which would be right across the street over here. By doing so, closing the runway turns the airport into a one-runway airport, and all of the air traffic will then be on one runway. We have another drawing, it's a variation, it just shows that there's lots of space by closing the runway and turning it into a taxiway for hangars and tie-downs. Remember, this is an important decision point for the city to make, so it's what to do with the runway. Moving over to the south quad, this is an airport parcel that's along Grandview. That area is currently being used for medium and heavy general aviation. We're showing the continued use by putting in hangars, a mix of hangars of small, medium, and large hangars. So that's what we're looking at. There's three drawings. The first one just shows all large hangars. Second one shows a mix of medium and large hangars. And the third one shows a mix of small, medium, and large hangars. We're also showing on that side expansion of parking, apron, pavement that is, for general aviation parking, an extra taxiway, and a connection from the fixed base operator to the south quad. But we're showing this infield is being maintained for drainage purposes. So that's the south quad. We'll go pretty fast through that one. And the next one is going to be the west side. So this particular drawing we're calling it phase one. Phase one includes the full-length parallel taxiway west of the main runway. It also shows space for FedEx plus one additional air cargo operator, plus possible locations for the ARC station on the west side here and here, plus a possible location for the control tower here. There's a parcel that's shown here as being future land acquisition. That's actually not a new proposal, it's an existing proposal that we are showing here. But in order for this phase one to be fully built out, you have to acquire that property. If it's not acquired, you can still do a partial phase one, build a partial parallel taxiway, and space for FedEx on the west side of the airport. A couple of key points about this alternative phase one is that it maintains the existing Old Butte Road alignment for access to the west side development. Now that road may need to be widened or strengthened, but still it maintains the same alignment. Also, going back to the east side runway alternative, if it were chosen that that runway to be closed and cargo would be placed on the east side of the airport, then this alternative would not be projected to be needed through the planning horizon of this master plan, which is 24-1. Your cargo needs would be met on the east side. If the runway 1735 stays open, then this alternative does come in within the planning horizon of this master plan. And west side, phase 2. This drawing shows a part of phase 1, that's the taxiway and cargo, but this is the soccer field alternative, in case you're wondering. What we're showing here is nothing specific shown in the soccer fields, and that's because with the build out of phase 1, all of your demand has been met without using the soccer fields. That means that the soccer fields are not projected to be needed during this master plan. What we are showing, though, is a relocated Old View Road, and that's mainly as a land use protection measure, because we know that the soccer fields are airport property, and at some point beyond what is projected for this master plan, that parcel may be needed for airport purposes. And since it's landlocked, you would need to eliminate the road as it stands today or relocate it, and that's why we've shown it being relocated. What that would do is open up future planning needs, future airport needs, for use of the soccer fields with direct access to this taxiway that's built under phase 1. I'm sure we'll come back to this one, but I'm going to move to the next one. This is the last drawing. It's a what-if scenario. We know that the US 20 I-15 connector project is ongoing. It's separate from this master plan, but we need to speak to it at least. If this drawing shows a scenario where that north connector is selected and built, and what that would do is it would present an opportunity for the northwest, for development on the northwest side of the airport. And what we would project would be a new terminal complex, new passenger terminal, parking, cargo, rental cars, and you would move everything from the existing terminal area across the runway into this area. That would require some land acquisition, and it would require a connection from this development to the connector. But we're projecting that to be beyond the planning horizon of this master plan, so we're only showing it as a land use protection measure. We're also showing a possible relocation of that navigational aid I talked about earlier into this field out here, in line with the runway. And that is all of the alternatives. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. I'm sure we'll come back to these drawings during the Q&A. Okay, next steps in this master plan. We're going to allow a period for additional public comment after this meeting, because we know that there's a lot of material for you to digest, and you may want to sleep on it, and you may come up with something after this meeting that you would like to submit your questions and comments. So we're going to allow an opportunity for you to provide comment after this meeting. So once that happens, the city and airport staff are going to have to make a decision on what to move forward with. They will select a preferred alternative. And this is going to be a required step before the project can continue. Once that happens, then we will develop an implementation plan. And that implementation plan is how you're going to turn the preferred alternative into reality through a series of projects, project description, cost estimates, phasing, how you're going to turn that preferred alternative into reality over 20 years. We will also complete the airport layout plan, which we call the ALP. The ALP being really the primary deliverable of this project, the master plan being the justification for the projects on the ALP. But this will represent the last chapter to be written for the master plan report. Once that occurs, we'll hold another technical advisory committee meeting and another public meeting to present the full master plan document and the ALP sheets. There will be an allowance for more public comment after that. Once that happens, the master plan and the ALP will be finalized and then submitted to the FAA for their review and comment. Once they provide their review and comment, and we implement their comments, It'll be packaged up and then submitted to the city for their adoption. And that is when the official decision takes place. So at this point, no decisions have been made. We're just trying to keep things moving along. But that is the point where the decision gets made. And with that, we can go to the question and answer period. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break. That way, if you have comments to submit, go ahead and submit them to one of us members, and then we will reconvene and go over these comments. Thank you.
They still do this.
All right. Will any changes on airport master plan affect the air quality or sound quality to the surrounding homes near the airport? Good question. I think the answer to that is any major development that takes place on an airport is required to go through a national environmental review process. And I think the more specific impacts related to specific projects will be identified then. So that's probably, it's unknown because we're still in the planning phase, but as projects are more ripe for review, they'll go through their own specific environmental review process. Where would the community garden be relocated? We haven't identified another place for that community garden. That's just not. Where does FedEx go with 1735 open? Ground support equipment access to west side, east for small hangars. So if 1735 remains open, then the west side phase 1 is where we were projecting FedEx to go. That's why I have the slide. So this is a picture of west side phase 1 where we envision FedEx to go right here. This is actually existing airport property. In order for a second operator to go in, you'd have to acquire this parcel next to it. This would be where FedEx goes, 1735 remains open under this proposal. Regarding removal of 1735, what are potential consequences? Can't read all of it, or alternative runway in case of 321 closure, like if you're planning. Okay, so what would happen if 1735 is closed and 321 is also closed for some reason? Then the answer would be you would have no open runway until that reopens. Let's see. There's a second part. Let me try to get it. It's just expanded upon. If they close the current GA runway and all aircraft use the main runway, can there be flight path restrictions to prevent GA planes from flying over the neighborhoods east and west of the main runway? The FAA has pretty strict rules on placing restrictions for flight, for airplanes in flight. So the short answer would be no. However, the airport could seek to work out flight paths, preferred flight paths with the GA community to help avoid impacts to the residential areas. But as far as placing restrictions, the short answer is that would not occur. Okay, on the drawing for East Side Option 2, the existing T hangars are not captured in the historic district. They've been here longer than the pilot. So I'm going to go back to that drawing. I think I moved it. We've highlighted on this drawing the historic district. In that historic district, there are some smaller hangars here. I think that's what's being referred to. The proposal is not to disturb the historic district, except there are existing hangars in here that would be moved back more towards the freeway. And the reason is the way it's set up today, it does not meet current design standards. There's not enough space on the taxi lane. So what we've done is we're showing that those hangars are being moved so that you could create a taxi lane that would meet design standards and actually create more space for hangars. So there is a little bit of a change in what's in the historic district, but the existing hangars are just moved, not eliminated. Okay, and then, yeah, what data shows that taxiway C and 1735 is high risk. As it stands today, actually it's almost good. This taxiway right here crosses the runway. Has been identified by the FAA as a hotspot for runway incursions, and that's where it's been identified. So there's data there that already shows that it's a higher risk. And the reason is there's direct access from the parking apron crossing the high energy corridor. So that's where that data comes from. It comes from the FAA. And then the standard for eligibility used on 1735, we looked at the wind coverage data for the airport, and according to the FAA, if your main runway provides greater than 95% wind coverage, then a crosswind runway is not justified in their mind. So that means it would not meet the eligibility for funding as a crosswind. We also looked at capacity. Since the airport, once you reach about 60% capacity, then you start having justification for another runway. But we're nowhere close to that. Even with the projected operations, I think we're about 10%. I don't call the number. It's 60% is what we look for in planning, and we're far below that. And so it's not justified for capacity. And again, this is for the FAA guidance, so that's what we looked at. So they just simply won't provide the funding because of that. Do we need another runway for commercial flights? The short answer is no. So that answers the second part of the question about where it would go. We're not projecting to have any new runways added. Where would secondary cargo go? If on 1735, on this particular drawing, it would be right next to FedEx. So we've got FedEx plus another operator, which could be UPS, could be Amazon, whoever. Or on the west side, phase 1. UPS could go right here, next to FedEx. It would require acquisition of this property as well. Why not build large, continuous T-hangars set up for small planes like Salt Lake? That's an option. What we've shown are, let me go back to the drawing. We just happen to model 50 by 50 hangars on the east side, but there's no reason that says you couldn't change that up and put in T-hangars. Yeah, there we go. We just happen to model 50 by 50 hangars just for perspective to see what you could fit in there. But there's nothing that says that if there's a demand for T-hangars like you're describing, they could go in there as well. And why have they not opened up GA hangar space already? I don't think I can answer that question. When do you expect the airport IDA to require another runway the size and scope of the current main runway? Not during this planning horizon, not during this master plan. What? Okay, so we're not really, in future master plans, they'll look at it and make that determination. But in this master plan, we're not projecting to need another runway for the airlines. Yeah, it's more of a comment, but are you hoping for some other agency or entity to plan or build within the county to help alleviate pressure on IDA? We only looked during this plan at this airport. We did not look at other airports. Is IDA willing to push Idaho Falls? Something about land purchase and sale agreement. Okay, I think, is IDA willing to push Idaho Falls, the city, to break land purchase sale agreement I don't think I can answer that question. If the road is relocated, what do you plan to do about water retention areas and neighborhood affecting, as well as the sound buffers? I think that any future development that happens in that area, which we're not projecting to be needed right now, would have to incorporate drainage requirements. And sound buffers could be included in whatever that development is. But since we have nothing specific planned for that area, we don't have anything to show you that. How long is the IDA project currently? How long does IDA project currently constitute airport to meet demands and regulations? I think it's in good position. I think it will be in better position if we incorporate what's being proposed, because that's one of the main things that we try to do during these master plans is to make the airport as compliant as possible. My concern is the current drain field and how it will be affected or repositioned. I'm not sure which drain field. The soccer fields? Right, okay. So again, since nothing is projected to occur on the soccer fields, then we're not planning for any drainage improvements. Whatever is planned outside of this master plan, we have to take that into consideration. And then the road rerouting, what will be in between the backs of the houses and Old View Road relocation? Is the berm going to remain, and will there be a sound barrier? I think that's a question that would be more about when the road is more ready to be designed and built. And then those questions would be answered then. Right now, we're just proposing a relocation of the road for land use purposes, but it's a high-level planning, it doesn't get into that specific detail.
Gas and that market, so if I would say if the road, I hope everyone can hear me all right.
What was the question?
He asked about a timeline on when the road can potentially be relocated, and that's beyond the scope of what we're anticipating. We're showing it as an alternative in the case it is needed to be relocated during the planning horizon. But also, if the road were to be widened, it would make sense to widen it in its ultimate location rather than in its existing location. So it's speculative. It's if demand arises, if there was a need to, right now in the Idaho Metropolitan Planning Organization's plan, they're showing Old View Road becoming 4 lanes. And so we need to, as part of one of our requirements, is coordination with other road plans. And so we need to make sure that we are planning for that as well, and that we are going to be able to accommodate that. So in terms of, if we have a need, if our demand outpaced what we're projecting, then maybe that road does need to be moved inside of this 20 years to accommodate future aviation growth. And that would likely be part of a master plan down the road. So right now, we don't have a timeline. We're not anticipating it necessarily moving, but we are planning for it in case it is.
What is the status of the village homes facing the west side of the airport? I don't really know that that's a question that I can answer here, because the only thing that's being proposed is that road relocation. Will there be a sound wall placed on the Old View Road that's going to be moved? And that's a recurring question, and I think that's going to come into when that road is ready to be moved and how it gets designed and incorporated into the development. It's a good question, though. Am I correct in my understanding that there are actually no alternatives to the impact to homes by the soccer fields and the homes on Grandview? We are not projecting the soccer fields to be needed during this master plan. So if that's what the question is, then it is correct. question, we're not projecting to need to use the soccer fields during this master plan. Now, again, that movement of the road is a land use protection measure because it is airport property, and at some point in the future, it may be, but not at this time.
Question about that. Will they remain open for the public or is it going to be fenced off?
That's a bigger question.
Yes, I mean,
There's no, it's on, I plan to fence it off. The issue is that this land was purchased with federal funds. It's shown as airport property. And because of such, the land has incurred grant assurances essentially. And one of those is revenue diversion, right? The airport can't buy property and use it for another city function without being compensated with fair market value. So for the time being, as long as the land is not needed and a fair market lease is paid from the city to the airport, then it can continue to be used as soccer fields.
yeah, I was gonna mention something very similar. Just as a general rule, the FAA will allow non-aviation use to exist on the airport under certain conditions. One, that it is not needed for aviation, that it is temporary and could be converted to aviation, that it's receiving a fair market value, like the airport's receiving fair market value, and that it's a compatible land use as well. So that's a general rule. On a case-by-case basis, they would have to address that, but I could see that would have to be a city decision, of course, but generally speaking.
Excuse me, there's also
Go ahead.
Just as a question, if the old road has to be moved, let's just say that's in the phase one, do we have a timeline for that?
It's a really good question, and that actually, the phasing of projects comes after the city has selected a preferred alternative. So we haven't actually gone into that phasing and when it would occur. When we do the implementation, we break it up into short, medium, and long term. So if that is selected by the city, then we will do phasing, and then we'll have a better idea of timing of projects. Yeah, and it's as the demand calls for.
Is there a city representative that would care to take a stand in the dark when that would happen? I think that's not a question for you, it's for them. I think that's what most people are here for tonight.
I'll leave it up to the city.
So I don't know that the city can answer that. What the idea here is that we don't know, but the idea is that it might happen someday. This is a 20-year planning timeline. That's what we're trying to peer into the future, 20 years, and predict what's going to happen in 20 years. In 20 years, Old Butte Road might need to be moved. It might not. I can't give you guarantees on when all of that will happen. It's a long-term planning process. That's why we're inviting you to participate in the planning now, to get some idea of what happens in the future, so when the future arrives, we're not surprised. But to tell you that it's going to happen for sure in 20 years, I can't do that. To tell you that it isn't going to happen in 10, I can't do that either because we're not sure. But we do think that it's on the horizon. In the next 20, 30 years, you might see changes in it.
Go ahead.
Okay, now, what we've heard is the city's gonna walk away in 3 or 4 years from the soccer complex as it is right now. Now, you guys are saying that as far as you're concerned, it can continue to be used as a soccer complex, and it's being used right now. Which way we go there, you know, do we know, or is that just
I think,
speculation?
I don't want to speak on the city, but we are not projecting to need them for the next, through 2041. So as far as generally speaking, they can remain in place until they are needed. You know, that's a decision that's going to have to be made.
What form is the question, I guess?
It's a good question.
And
And
I don't
I,
want anybody listening out there that doesn't want to look like, could look.
and I don't think we're able to answer that question tonight. I think that's, hold on, can we get through the written questions first and then, and hold your questions, is that all right? Yeah, We might answer your questions. So we have, the next one is what alternatives have been considered to maintain the existing soccer fields? The fact that we haven't proposed any development on the soccer fields is one reason we can look at it. As far as the timing of when they will not be soccer fields, we can't answer that tonight. I think that's what we can answer. All right, what is the plan with the relocation of the water sewage plant? I'm assuming that's on the west side. The answer, if that is the case, is we're not proposing to relocate it at this time, at least as part of the master plan. What is the plan with working on a larger scale plan with city officials? The expectation is that this master plan will be coordinated with other planning that goes on in the city. And then when will the city shed that is in a restricted zone off the end of the runway be moved and where? I'm not sure which one that is. Okay, I don't know the answer to that question right now. And then with Old Butte Road Park going away, is there a planned replacement that will be easily accessible to Village Silverleaf residents? And I go again, this plan does not propose the park to go away. Hope that answers the question. At least not during this master plan. How far along is the land acquisition process? And will this end up being eminent domain? I guess that would depend on what land acquisition you're referring to. If it is, if that's the one you're referring to, I don't believe the process has started at all. It is shown on the existing Exhibit A as being future acquisition, but I don't think that process has started at all. Almost, this is the last one. With increased growth comes increased traffic. And since there is only one way into the airport, are there plans to widen skylines south of Grandview? We only looked at the airport itself. We did look at widening the skyline on the airport, but we did not look at it outside the airport. And with that, are we ready? Okay, let us get the microphone working properly real quick, if you don't mind, and then.
I have to go, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, we can hear you okay.
There was one of the written questions that asked about the road being moved, but then they also asked about the Grandview, homes along Grandview. What would the impact be with the hangars, et cetera? Is there going to be an impact there?
I think.
Or is it
Go ahead.
just taxiing into a hangar and that's the most of that's?
So is this the area you're referring to, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's development that would be going right up to where the houses exist. It is airport property.
But it wouldn't be like the runways or just.
That's right. That's what the proposal is, yes.
That would clarify.
Go ahead.
I want to go back to what the city attorney was talking about the old Butte Road going, we don't know what's going to happen with it. As homeowners, our house is, we can just jump right over the fence into the soccer field. As homeowners, and having, if that old Butte Road moves, the value of our property and everything, and being able to sell our property, that is our concern here. And whether or not, we need to sell our homes or, stay in our homes, but then our property value goes down. To have it may or may not have is a very big concern of, I think, all of us here about our property value. Can he expand a little bit more on if it's really going to happen and what we can do as homeowners?
If I may for a second, all of these drawings, all of these are still proposed, they're still under consideration. So they have not been selected as actually the development that's going to occur. So this is This is a way to unlock the soccer field area for future airport uses. One of the ways to do that would be to move the road. But it hasn't been selected yet. So maybe that's part of why, because of where we are in the process, the decision hasn't been made yet.
The other thing that has been discussed many times at many of these meetings is that the airport owns all that out there in Soccerville. When we bought our home, it was not stated that the airport actually, that it was zoned for the airport. None of us knew that that was in there. So that is our concern here as homeowners, that if this is gonna happen, what we need to do.
Right, I understand. Perhaps I can't answer that question for you, okay? I got a question in the back, yes.
Yeah, comment and a question. First of all, I appreciate your presentation and transparency tonight. I feel like tonight's presentation was a lot better than what we experienced last presentation. I don't know when it was, 6 months or a year ago. That's why there's a lot of questions here, is I felt like we were misled a year ago or whenever that last presentation was, and I felt like you've been a lot more upfront and transparent with us, so I appreciate that, and the city as well. Question though, with all of your projections, for those projections to come true, Idaho Falls has to have a lot of growth, which we're projected to do. That growth is going to all occur around the airport. If you look at housing developments and land that's been purchased, it's all around the airport. The airport also is a fog hole. If there's fog that exists in Idaho Falls, it starts right where the airport sits. You can go 500 yards away from the airport and be fog-free, but completely not see where the airport is at. So knowing all of this development, knowing that you have the I-15 interchange that's coming that will lead to more development, why is one of the options you presented not to relocate the airport 20 miles to the west? Sure, it's going to be an initial upfront commitment. It's going to be a little bit painful upfront, but long term, it's going to be a much better solution for this city, because with the developments taking place, this airport's going to sit right in the center of the city. Let's follow what Denver did and some of these other cities. Let's learn from them. But why is one of your options not to just completely relocate this airport 20 miles west of town?
Right. When we're doing this planning process, one of the big things we look at is, can it meet airport design standards, dimensional standards? This airport can, so that if an airport is hopelessly constrained dimensionally, because there's just no way to make it meet standards, then one of the ways to meet that would be to look at an alternate site. This airport can meet those design standards on site. Another is, can it accommodate the demand that's being projected in this 20-year planning horizon? The answer is yes, it can. And that is why an alternate site is not looked at, because all of your needs can be met at the existing airport site.
I appreciate the answer. It still seems like with all the growth that we're projected to have and looking at where it's going to take place, it just seems like it should be something that the city may want to look at. I'm sure from your perspective, maybe your job is only redesigning, so you're hoping they don't relocate. I don't know, but and that's why you haven't considered it an option, because I'm sure you're right. I don't question what you just said, but it just seems long-term with the growth of this area that this airport's going to be an issue in 30 or 40 or 50 years from now. And I think we're going to look back to this day and say, dang, when we did all that improvement, we should have made the move then, because we're going to have to look at doing it now.
And a lot of it has to do with justification, funding and justification. And the justification, we don't have the justification to do the planning 40 years from now. So we have it to do 20 years from now. So we do have to operate within some constraints, and that the projects that are proposed are justified. And I think that is a great comment to submit, though, to the city, though, as part of this project.
Appreciate it. Thank
and
you.
I appreciate your comments earlier, too. And I also mentioned that the best place to put it was really beautiful when the fog is, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure that's it.
There would be no need to move over the road. Now I'm sure you could be to that.
I think you heard it correctly. If, going to look drawing. So if 173.5 was to be closed and converted to a taxiway and cargo was put on the east side of the airport, then the phase one would not be projected to be needed. Phase one did not really talk about moving Old View Road because there was nothing really planned to be developed there. So I do not think it would be needed to be moved within the planning horizon of this master plan, right? You have to remember, there's a lot, a ton, with all of the different phases you see, there's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of building, millions and millions of dollars that would have to occur before you get to that point, right? I think did I answer your question?
You did, but I
Okay.
have a quick one.
Okay.
So if, I mean, just sitting here, I mean, I'm not considering it out here for work, but sitting here, if the, FAA is not going to provide funds to receive that, or going to continue using that, why wouldn't we change it to a taxi?
I'm sorry, I actually didn't quite catch it.
So it's 1735, if the FAA is not going to fund it, and we're gonna have to pay for that, the city for maintaining it, why, I mean, it seems like an no-brainer, why wouldn't we just convert it to a taxiway so that FAA will fund it then? Why is that even a question?
Because the general aviation community uses that route.
Okay, that's part of it.
Okay, is that city tax dollars or is that?
It would most likely be airport funds.
But airport, where do airport funds come from?
The airport is a, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the airport runs on its own fund that's funded by, by fees at the airport, so it's not supported by taxpayer money. General fund taxpayer, it's funded by fees that are at the airport. An enterprise fund, thank you.
A question about the timing of the relocation of the I-15 interchange. I got the impression from those meetings that it was within this 20-year window, and it seems like it might be a rush to spend millions of dollars on this south end, and then only if they relocate it to the north, when it'd be much more traffic to do all that for a lot of reasons. Maybe spending money prematurely. Because I think they suggested as well within this 20-year time frame, just because there's available infrastructure money and blah, blah, blah.
They just, I don't believe, I'll be corrected on, that it hasn't been selected yet.
No, it hasn't, but if it did, then we spend a lot of money here, and you can't just move it, it's not a real.
Right. It's still, for our purposes, a little too speculative, because it just kind of hasn't occurred yet, and we don't know when that will be selected. Yeah, we're already projecting to meet the demand, so, yeah, if they had already made a selection, then it would probably change how we look at that alternative, to be within the 20 years.
Mine was for, so if you shut down that 1735 roadway, does that affect your projections? And then would those projections affect the amount of funds you get from the FAA or anything for the rest of the project?
No, the forecast remains the same.
So my question is on the west side of the soccer fields, on our homes in the back of Clarence Drive. Right now, you have a utility going through there, and I'm sure there is a right-of-way there. So there's a standard as far as how far off that right-of-way you have to be with your road. Can you answer how far that is? And my other part of the question is the safety for our families. If you're turning that into a 4-lane road, you better be putting some sort of safety barrier back there to protect our families.
I don't know the answer to that. It would have to be incorporated once that road is ready to be built, or closer to being built. The high level planning, we don't know that specifically.
So, is the projection that taxiway B is not wide enough? Or is it the taxiway between the existing 1960s teenagers and the little mid-hangers and built right next to taxi?
Are you talking about the historic districts? Or-
Yeah, the historic district. Because you've got shown
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's too narrow. It's too narrow by the design standards.
You're talking about taxiway that's new setting.
That's right, yes. That's exactly right.
So, if the road goes, how do we plan for funding to do that?
Yeah. We haven't got that far yet. I think that's the only way to answer it. We haven't identified funding. Right. Just being honest. There was, in the back.
Just a quick clarifying question about the east side general aviation options. For those of us who are here and concerned for the village neighborhood and Silver Lake neighborhood, the alternative that would remain things that would enable the current state to remain until, unless, projections grow, would be the east side general aviation option 2. Is that correct?
I'll just pull it up and make sure we're.
So when I provide feedback to the city, if I want to maintain the current state of where Old Butte is and the soccer fields and all of that, I should voice my opinion for option 2.
What we're looking at on the screen is option 1 and 2. Options 1 and 2 are just a little bit different hangar and configurations, but you're probably talking about 1, if I'm not mistaken.
That's not part of this option.
No, but if you were to close the runway and put cargo on the east side, then it would delay the need to use the west side of the airport. I think that's what you're asking.
Which option?
GA option 1 or 2, they're essentially the same, just different hangar layouts.
So both those options close down that runway?
Yeah. Yes, and that.
When I did some review on this, I wondered, the airport is pretty well surrounded. The only direction really it can go is southwest. And there's 78 acres or something like that that's just come available. Well, not just, it's available. And that's going to be filled in with businesses and houses and stuff in the next 20 years. Maybe this is an answer to what this gentleman had over here, moving clear out of town. That runway could be extended like they did in Denver over Broadway. And that 78 acres then could be expansion for hangars, everything you need. And not buy anything around that you don't already own.
It's a good comment. We don't project the runway to be needing to be lengthened.
I understand, but for growth.
We are showing acquisition, we're showing potential acquisition tax.
I've just been informed that what that parcel you're talking about is already being in the process of being acquired. Is that right?
By who?
We're showing it for acquisition.
We're showing it for future acquisition
By leasing.
by the airport.
Very good.
Ultimately, we would fund the acquisition for that $80 grand. The land purchase is good for road protection, so that nothing.
Yes.
Got a question on the north side option.
Yeah.
My understanding is that that is a highly speculative, if the interchange choice happens to be the northern choice there, then we'll look into that region and terminal relocation, and that will, even if that were the interchange selected, and that option is chosen, that's still not really projected to happen until near the end of the 20-year span, correct?
Yes. We're looking at it as a land use protection only to just make sure that nothing, at least the airport for sure, isn't built there, to see what happens. but it's still speculative and beyond the planning horizon of this master plan. We wanted you to speak to it though, because we know what's going on.
Yeah.
If Oldview is relocated, is the current intersection going to stay off of the highway?
The answer is yes. We could always break up into the open house format and speak individually if you would like, if there's no any question. We're going to be here till 8. All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.